Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, hey, man, how's it going?
It's going awesome. My wife and I are we're binging Parks and Rec right now.
Oh,
And
nice.
while we were watching an episode recently, she turned to me and she goes, "You should change the name of your podcast to You Heard with Gerd." And I said, that's a great idea. We should do that. So what do you think? Do we have a new
No, I,
name?
no. Uh, that one has been suggested way back in the day, and yes, we are all very big fans of Perd Hapley. But no, I don't care for that. I apologize, Tom. Tell your wife to go back to the drawing board, do
I
it in
will.
a nice manner, and maybe come up with something better.
All right.
I mean,
Yeah.
our creative minds did come up with the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I don't know that we can do better or be more creative than that.
Well, yeah. And it is kind of creative because ever since we named it Buckeye Weekly, I don't think we've ever done exactly one episode per week. It has been at least 2 to 3 episodes every week. So we immediately had the wrong name on our podcast, which,
It's very avant-garde.
yeah, I mean, we could do Buckeye bi-weekly, but then people get confused whether it comes out twice a week or every other week. And yeah, so yeah, I think we're stuck with what we got. Sorry.
Yeah, it's plus the tattoos won't come off, so it is what it is. Tom, let's talk about scheduling today. And as we record, it is Thursday, around 8 p.m. So the Big Ten schedule is not out yet. There's a possibility it will come out on Friday. Not every schedule is out yet, but the SEC came out and said that they've got their plans for a schedule, which the season would kick off on September 26th with a championship game on December 19th. The ACC released their schedule model a couple of days ago, where it's 10 conference games and a possible 11th against a non-conference opponent. That I think we assumed, Tom, that non-conference opponent would be, for half of those teams, an SEC team. Now those teams are kind of out of luck. Like Georgia Tech won't have Georgia, Clemson won't have South Carolina, Boston College won't have Alabama. Wait, not that one. No, not that one. But they're not going to have those in-state rivalry games, which I think is that's kind of a smack in the face to the ACC from the SEC. But the SEC can do that.
I mean, it sounds to me like the SEC is scared. I mean, I don't know what
Ooh.
other possible conclusion you could draw other than Georgia is scared of Georgia Tech. That's, I mean,
Hmm.
if following college football for these so many decades has taught me anything, it's that whenever someone doesn't do something, it's because they're scared of another conference. So,
That's true. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, the SEC is scared of the ACC, and it makes total sense when you look at this lineup of programs in the ACC. Your Syracuse's, your Virginia's, your Wake Forests, your Pitts. Did I mention Wake Forest? All of these killer lineups of programs, Tom, that have been to bowl games.
hmm yeah, I mean, Pitt, national champion, Syracuse, national champion, uh,
Virginia
Georgia
was ranked like number 2 in 1990 for a while.
Georgia Tech won the national championship in 1990. At
Exactly.
least half of it. Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
it is the conference of champions since the Pac-12 is, I think, abdicating that and abdicating
Hmm.
everything else right now. So yeah,
Hmm.
there you go.
So I've just got this rundown of all of these different schedule things, but I guess I should just follow the rundown rather than just talking and going all over the place. So let's talk about the SEC first off. I did see that Georgia doesn't want to host a cocktail party this year because they don't want to have no fans in Georgia and then go to Gainesville next year against fans, which is probably the most SEC road game schedule concern of all time. Or like, we know they don't like to go anywhere out of conference. Georgia's now like, we don't even want to go to Florida
Can you imagine having to play a conference road game against a halfway decent team?
with a
What is this,
crowd.
Soviet Russia?
So we talked about this a little bit on Friday morning's Buckeye Weekly. No, on Friday morning's The Morning Scoop about the SEC starting September 26th and then having that conference championship game on December 19th. That allows them, in theory, to have the last word. We're going to assume there's playoffs, or at least assume there's voting for a national title. Those teams, if you think the Big Ten is going to end before December, at least in terms of the conference play, like that could give the SEC the last couple of weeks of the season to be the lasting memory of the season, and to take this to recruiting where some people think if you get that last official visit, that's good, and that's maybe what will decide it. The SEC could be getting the last official visit for voters this year, which, voters are already, I don't want to say biased to assume the SEC is better than everyone else. Let's say they're conditioned to say that, to think that. And if you're conditioned to think that, there could be a lot of biases, conditions confirmed at the end of the season as it relates to the SEC.
Well, yeah, I think the default answer is always, well, the SEC must be the best league because the SEC is always the best league because we say this every year, and so therefore it must be true. And when the SEC wins their bowl games, it's because the SEC is the best, and when the SEC loses its bowl games, it's because they're bored because they're not playing SEC teams, so you can't blame them. And there is sort of that ingrained, that ingrained bias to the system, and there is certainly an argument that there are maybe top to bottom the SEC is better, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Clemson or Ohio State or, well, Oklahoma's not a good example, but Clemson or Ohio State wouldn't go unbeaten in the SEC, and that a one-loss SEC team always deserves the benefit of the doubt over a one-loss anyone else because obviously it's the SEC, and that's going to be, I think you're going to see that even more this year. Because without any of those crossover data points, without, Ohio State going to Oregon and beating Oregon, and Michigan going to Washington and beating Washington, and whoever if USC beat Alabama in week 1 this year, that would be a big cross-conference data point in favor of the Pac-12 over the SEC, or Ohio State over Oregon to be the Big Ten over the Pac-12. You don't have any of that this year. So it's just whoever wins the SEC is the team that won the SEC, and, well, the SEC must be the best conference. We don't have any cross-conference data points to confirm or deny that, but, I mean, it must be true because it's always true because we say it's always true. So that, I think, might be worse and more obnoxious this year, and with no outside data points to confirm or deny any of this, like, it's going to get real obnoxious this year. So that's something to look forward to. And the other thing that I think is interesting is, we talked about this in terms of, the SEC having the last word of a conference championship game if their conference championship game is a week or two after the Big Tens. I mean, go back to the BCS era where Ohio State, beats Michigan in 2006 and then is sitting around for like 45 or 50 days, and Florida has another game 2 weeks after that, and it has a much shorter break and comes back much fresher and all of that. I mean, that there's a whole, if there is a 2 week less gap between, the end of the SEC championship game and a theoretical college football playoff, does that mean the SEC team is fresher? Or does that mean the SEC team is beat up and hasn't had the time to recover that the Big Ten team has? There's a whole bunch of stuff that this is going to be a season that is filled with just completely unprecedented and wildly unpredictable variables, and that is certainly among them somewhere.
Yeah, well, the assumption would be that if there are playoffs, they would start 2 weeks after the SEC championship game. And I know I keep going back to the 2014 Ohio State season where Urban Meyer just kept talking about how beat up they were and how every game was so strenuous. I can't imagine after a conference championship game that 2 weeks later, teams would be, well, they would have to be ready, but I don't think it would be much of an advantage, especially if somebody comes down with COVID at that point. There's, if they have to sit out 14 days, can they get back into the game in time? But I guess you're just as liable to get it from practice or, physics class as you are on the field. But yeah, I think I would rather have time at least 3 weeks as opposed to 2 weeks. And as we know, like if the SEC is the end all be all, then playing 10 games in that amount of time, and especially if it has to be backloaded because things get pushed, that's going to ask the players quite a bit. And then to turn around 2 weeks later, if there are playoffs, to get to that. Although I wouldn't be surprised if the playoffs get pushed back an extra week, just because, I'm not saying for the SEC, but probably for the SEC. But also, we might see everybody moving to December 19th championship games. The ACC is 12th or 19th. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Big Ten move it from the 5th to the 12th or the 19th, something like that. There's almost no reason not to just give yourself that much room. But yeah, and then that puts everybody on equal footing. And I know that's the biggest thing with coaches. But going into the postseason after the bowl games or after the conference championship games, there is no set fairness in terms of when your postseason game is going to be. It's just, you figure if you've got 3 weeks, you're fine. But 2 weeks is, man, that's not a lot of time for the playoffs. And although I think that's what Navy or Army would have to deal with, because they play after the conference championship games. So yeah, maybe we'll get to see what it would have been like if Navy or Army would have to deal with the 2 week turnaround for the playoffs.
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing that you've hit on there is it's not just the physical strain on guys. I mean, Ohio State went through that towards the end of last season. I mean, you mentioned 2014, the end of last season.
Yeah.
One of the reasons Ohio State looked like they were, running in quicksand in the first half of the Big Ten championship game was, hey, they had to play Penn State and Michigan the 2 weeks before that, and then you get Wisconsin. It's like 3 weeks in a row. That is a tough ask. And once they got going, okay, they kind of kicked it into gear, but it's hard to do that 3 weeks in a row. So if you do have conference championship games on the 19th, and then you're starting to play off 2 weeks after that, that's going to be, I mean, yes, 1 week off will help, but then you're traveling and all that kind of stuff, and it's around Christmas. I mean, there's a whole bunch of complications there that could be an issue. And if someone gets COVID from traveling to the SEC championship game, they are going to miss probably most, if not all, of the time of the prep for that college football playoff game. And maybe they're cleared by the time the playoff starts. Maybe they aren't. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's going to make this season just completely unpredictable, and it is going to be. I think it's going to be, you're going to have people talking with great certainty this year, with even more certainty than you normally hear them talking with, about how, well, this team is definitely better than that team, and this league is definitely better than that league, and you're going to have so much less data to make that conclusion. And even if you're right, there's so much stuff that can happen, with guys getting sick, people getting hurt and not having time to recover between games. I mean, all that kind of stuff is going to make this, even if you happen to be right with less data to make your conclusions from, you might still end up being wrong, because a bunch of stuff's going to change before a game can even start.
I'm looking at this SEC 10 game conference only scheduled deal, and if Georgia loses at Alabama, that won't even count as a loss. So for us to be talking about the playoffs, it's kind of foolish right now, but there are no games going on, and we have time. We have to content. We have to put stuff out. So we are going to talk about the playoffs. But as we're doing all of this speculation, like if everything goes off as planned, and there is a playoff, I could see Georgia getting in with 2 losses if one of them is to Alabama, because that is not going to count as a loss. That's just going to be like, how do you expect anybody to go through a 10-game SEC schedule with just 1 loss? Of course, even the best teams are going to have 2 losses in the SEC. And of course, if Alabama has, like, if there are no 1-loss teams in the SEC, that's just proof of how darn good the SEC is. And yes, the SEC is the best conference. I can say that. I believe it, but I also believe that they get a little bit more credit, a lot more credit than they deserve when just the gushing and the forgiveness of ills, the forgiveness of losses. And if you have a conference where everybody is beating each other up and they have 2 losses, guess what? You have too many losses. I don't care. Now, if that's the same for everybody else, okay, then you choose from that. But if there are enough teams that have had their say in their own conference and have done well enough in that own conference to have better records, now is 10-1 in the ACC better than 8-2 in the SEC? I guess we'd have to see what those losses are. But I get annoyed when losses are just completely forgiven in the SEC, and with 2 more conference games, I know it's going to happen again.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Alabama, Georgia, whoever wins gets credit for 2 wins, and whoever loses gets credit for 0 losses because, obviously, no one could have beaten them, so that's not fair. Yeah. And, Georgia is, I think Georgia has LSU. Georgia might have Auburn and Alabama and Florida all on their initial schedule. We have not obviously seen the updated schedule that has not come out yet, but they could go 1-2 in that group, and it's like, well, they've lost to. You can't expect anyone to beat Florida and Alabama. That's not realistic. So of course they should be in that conversation. And you will hear that, and you will throw things at your television, and that's just, it's fine. At least you're talking about on-field college football stuff. So just make your peace with it now. You have no control over it. So enjoy Arby's. That's and you know what, it would almost be refreshingly normal to have that be the stuff that people are getting angry about instead of, this is me gesturing towards everything in the world right now. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. And then the business partner of the SEC being ESPN, it's going to be bad. And I wouldn't even be surprised to see Georgia move up a couple spots after losing at Alabama. It's like, wow, it looked really good in this loss. And plus, new quarterback, and they still almost managed to win a game on the road. And teams don't win on the road. Teams don't even Georgia doesn't even like to go on the road. So, you got to give them credit for almost winning that game. And it's going to, but as you said, Tom, that's give us the normalcy, and we will happily take it, and give us stuff we love to complain about as opposed to stuff we hate. And that's all we're asking for. Just give us 3 months. Let us do that. And then we'll go back to this living misery that we're all existing in. Just, give us this oasis, please.
Yeah, if the college football offseason is the thing that we're all feeling sad about earlier next year, that would be great. Let's have that be, college football's over. That's sad. Remember when that was the stuff everyone was stressed and unhappy about? That was great.
Mm-hmm. So, Tom, what do you think about the way the ACC has just allowed Notre Dame to move into their house? Like, they've even taken over the master bedroom. Poor, Syracuse and Virginia now have to sleep in the apartment above the garage. And of course, Notre Dame likes to warm up the car in the garage and just let it go and just get warm in the garage. And now these poor schools have to deal with the fumes coming up through the vents. Notre Dame has a special diet, so they've taken the entire freezer in the kitchen and half of the chest freezer there in the garage, and their socks stink, and they take up the entire couch, where it's like, poor Wake Forest has to sit on the floor now because Notre Dame's just all stretched out on the couch, and they bring over their Yankee fans, as their Yankee fan friends, and they're taking up the recliner, and they've just overtaken the ACC. Now, it's a symbiotic relationship between the ACC and Notre Dame this year, but it just doesn't sit right with me that a conference would just allow Notre Dame to join, not even join fully, but to take part fully, and then also possibly win the conference championship. It says a lot about the ACC, and yes, they can say, well, we're just we're taking advantage of Notre Dame as much as they are us. And it's like, I don't know.
I do like the idea of Notre Dame running the car in a closed garage. That would explain a lot about their bowl performances the last quarter century or so. But no, this is not Notre Dame moving in. This is Notre Dame sending the ACC a text at 2 a.m. saying, "You up?" That's what this is. This is the booty call season for Notre Dame, and the ACC answered and said, "Yes, we are up. Come on over." And so they are. And there was report that Notre Dame is turning over some of its NBC TV revenue to the ACC, so the ACC is getting something out of it. But this was very much like, this is the only thing that Notre Dame could basically do, because if this didn't work out and the ACC just said nope, then they were going to be in real bad shape. I do wonder if this is going to push them, if this is dragging on for a couple seasons with some level of uncertainty, if this is still dragging on in 2021, if this might drive Notre Dame to finally join the ACC. Because again, it makes no sense for Notre Dame to be in the ACC. Like, there's nothing, their whole thing is, we're a national program. We don't want to be thought of as a regional Midwestern program. Like, okay, great. Now you're thought of as a regional Midwestern program that just plays a bunch of Southeastern teams. Like, but that makes no sense. Like, congratulations, you're playing North Carolina State every year. That doesn't make you a national program. But it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to join the ACC. But it has never made a lot of sense for them to join the ACC, that the ACC just kind of gave them a landing spot for all of their other programs. And so this has always been a little bit of a booty call relationship. So it's not super surprising. But yeah, I think this is a year when Notre Dame needs the ACC more than the ACC needs Notre Dame. But overall, the ACC, in terms of football, gets a lot more out of Notre Dame than Notre Dame gets out of the ACC. So, this is a mutually beneficial booty call, I guess.
And maybe if the SEC puts a ring on Notre Dame's finger this year, it'll stop being a booty call and it'll become marriage.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I guess that's how it works. I guess. I mean, I guess it depends on how they write the contract, but yeah, that'll be.
But if ACC, it would be like peak ACC to have the winner of your conference not even be in your conference this year. Like, yeah, your conference is an embarrassment to everybody. It's almost it's not too far off from the old Big East, where you had Miami and Pitt, Virginia Tech, Louisville, all of Boston College. A
couple of weeks ago, we had the show where we were making bold predictions, and my bold prediction was that all the teams in the ACC Coastal would finally fulfill the dream of going 4-4. Everyone goes 4-4 in the ACC Coastal, because last year they had the seventh team won in the span of 7 years, so they had fulfilled that beautiful cycle. Now they're going to do this. Well, they're not playing division games this year, but if Notre Dame makes the ACC championship game, I am absolutely crowning them ACC Coastal champions and saying that 8 different teams have won in a 7-team division in the span of 8 years. Like that would be, if we can't get everyone goes 4-4, I will absolutely settle for 8 different teams winning the same division in a 7-team division in an 8-year span. Like that would be the most hashtag go ACC thing yet.
And we could get Clemson Notre Dame twice this year, which would be interesting. I do wonder how late in the season the Clemson game at Notre Dame will be. It wouldn't surprise me if it's earlier in the season. But yeah, I mean, if those two teams with no divisions this year, it's the top 2 winning percentage based in conference play. And so we could see that twice. I wouldn't mind that. Tom, would you like to see the Big Ten go to one division this year?
Which one means that I don't have to watch Rutgers? Would that be one division? If so, yes, I'll take one division. Yeah.
Tom, if Rutgers gets the Big Ten and college football shut down this year, they should already be kicked out of the Big Ten. But if they harm the season in any way, if you cost somebody like, poor Purdue couldn't play 10 games this year because of Rutgers, you know what, you got to go. We just HR has told you that this was an issue. We have talked to you many, many times. You've been on probation since 2014 when you beat Michigan, and you shouldn't have. You were supposed to do that. But if they harm the Big Ten any more than they already have, they got to go.
Well, I'm in favor of, I don't know if you're familiar with the idea of pods, where you just have like 3 protected rivals you play every year, and everyone else in the conference you rotate. Because there's no reason. There's nothing special about an Ohio State Maryland or an Ohio State Rutgers game. Like, sure, keep the Michigan game, keep say Michigan State and Penn State. And Ohio State plays, that group of teams every year, and then just rotate Indiana and Rutgers and Maryland through on the same basis that you rotate Minnesota and Iowa and Purdue and Illinois. Like, just rotate the rest of them through on and then you don't have teams going 8 years between visits to a cross-divisional team. I mean, that's just, you're basically not in the same conference at that point if you're playing teams like once every 5 years, once every 6 years. Like, that's, you're just barely in the same conference at that point. So yeah, I'm in favor of doing that so that it's not like 6 years between visits to Minnesota or Iowa or Wisconsin or whatever. I mean, it's just it goes crazy long between visits to certain cross divisional campuses. I would much rather see Ohio State play Wisconsin every 2 years as opposed to playing them every 4 years right now or every 3 years right now, just because they have to play Rutgers and Maryland just because those are on the same division. Like, absolutely, just shoot the divisions into the sun and rotate around the conference more.
So you are in favor of keeping Rutgers? Interesting.
While we have the trebuchet loaded with the divisions, let's also shoot Rutgers into the sun. I mean, I'm fine with Rutgers being in a division as long as it's the American East. Like, go ahead, that's fine. Absolutely, go play Temple again. That'd be great.
You put the divisions in the trebuchet, and then Rutgers just happens to be walking by, and the shoestring gets caught in something, and then they just get attached, and they just get flung as well. You're like, well, I guess that's just Darwin at work right there.
And
good luck to you in your future endeavors.
Yes, good luck with the COVID, everyone. Yes,
keep chopping wood, Rutgers. So by the time people are listening to this, like, the Big Ten schedule might be out. So our apologies for that. We cannot control the Big Ten. We've been waiting for this schedule drop for at least 2 weeks now. So if they happen to drop the schedule like 12 hours after we're talking about it, that's not on us. That's on the Big Ten being haters. So
we waited until close of business to make sure it was not being dropped today. So at some point, we were anticipating this was going to get dropped probably the beginning of the week, at least last week, maybe the week before.
No.
I contacted the Big Ten's office a week ago now just to ask. I'm not asking what the schedule will be. I'm asking if you have an idea when you'll know what the schedule will be, and received no response. So Yeah, we cannot necessarily plan around the Big Ten either releasing or not releasing anything, and Ohio State has been treating everything with the secrecy of the Manhattan Project for the last 2 months. So yeah, we're sort of waiting patiently, but yeah, at some point there will be an explosion of news, and we can't wait. But hasn't happened yet.
I believe the Big Ten's response was, "What's the schedule?"
I'm sorry, you will have to FOIA that. It's a bit like Michigan's depth chart. Sorry, can't do that.
The dictionary definition of schedule is, and you're like, this is not anything what I asked for. So the Big Ten probably will be starting on September 5th. We were talking about playing 10 games in 14 weeks. If they were to start week 0, that would assume the Big Ten championship game would be December 5th. But as we've seen with other conferences, there's no longer a reason to assume that the conference championship game would be on December 5th. And really, if nobody else is going to keep theirs to December 5th and move it to December 12th or 19th, there's no reason for the Big Ten to also not move theirs because it's being played indoors, so it's not a weather concern. So they can go 14 or 15 weeks to play these 10 games. And if you go 14 weeks, that's a bye week after every 2 games if you want it. That's an opportunity to gives you a lot of opportunity to move weeks. And then if you just have December 12th that's just going to be wide open. That's a makeup day for everybody. So nothing is scheduled there. So, if things don't work out, you can just know that date is going to be available for anybody, no matter how late in the season a game gets canceled. So I think, Tom, I think the Big Ten should do what the SEC is doing. Like, what would be the downside is there a downside to moving the Big Ten championship game out 2 weeks? Plus, it keeps them in the mind of, it keeps the attention on the Big Ten as well as the SEC.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely an argument to be made for spacing it out a little more, push it back a week. I mean, sure, why not? I mean, there will, I'm sure, be some reason involving the final exam schedule or something, which is definitely something you can plan around this far out. I just looked at the Indianapolis Colts schedule, since that's the stadium where they play, and they would probably not want to play back-to-back days there, play a Saturday night and then a Sunday there. The Colts are on the road both Sunday, December 6th and Sunday, December 13th, but they are home on Sunday, December 20th. So, and that could be a Saturday, December 19th game, because they do the weird Saturday games in December. So they at very least could push it back a week, and there shouldn't be anything. I mean, unless there's a concert or something in Lucas Oil on Saturday the 12th, they very likely could push it back and not have a conflict with the Colts. And at this point, who knows how in ink that schedule is for the Colts this far out. Mm-hmm. I mean, that 2020, it's subject to change. That's just sort of been the theme of the year, and who knows? But at least it is a theoretical possibility right now that they could slide it back at least 1 week and not have a Colts conflict. And you know what? Absolutely do it. Like, the worst case scenario is you give yourself an extra week for guys to heal up, an extra week to be spaced out, and if someone tests positive 2 weeks before, you give them some time to get healthy. I mean, that does not seem like a real downside there. So yeah, I would say sure, push it at least give yourself the option to push it a week if you want to.
Here's a thing that has been going on in my mind recently. If you have the opportunity, you've got like 15 weeks to play 10 games. To me, that also means you don't have to play on Saturdays. You can play any day of the week and then take the next week off to get yourself back to, so that you're never playing a short schedule. So I think the Big Ten should schedule as many games throughout the week as possible while still having enough for your media partners on Saturday. But, let's say, because we know like the Big Ten Network will always get a few games. They'll probably get one less, but there should never be a reason right now to have the Big Ten Network where they've got 2 games going on at the same time. Like, play them throughout the week. That would be the best ratings they've ever had on a Wednesday night or a Tuesday night or a Thursday night, where you can have that inventory. Now, you'll be going against Major League Baseball for a little while, maybe. You'll be going against the NBA, not that I think that's really an issue. The NFL will be Thursday and Sunday. So I think there's also an opportunity to do a little Maction Big Ten style where, you're going to have some Wednesday night games, and then that team will have, 10 days off or 11 days off to then get ready for their next game. So I think there's a lot of interesting things you could do to create content, which is what we're all trying to do in a pandemic, but also keep the interest, keep the eyeballs, make some money for the conference by having, I mean, if you've got a game every week, every night or close to it, I mean, that's appointment viewing. Even maybe not Rutgers, Maryland, but what are you going to watch on a Tuesday night, Tom? Rutgers, Maryland, or CSI, New Jersey? I don't know.
Secret option C: sitting in the garage with Notre Dame with the car running. No, I think there is a reason to think that is more likely than it might seem kind of at first blush. And the reason is none of the group of 5 leagues have canceled their schedules yet. I think there's, it's more likely that, say, the MAC decides, you know what, I don't think we can play this fall because of the, what's required in terms of testing and, potentially having maybe having guys stay in hotels for, the whole fall semester or something like that. I mean, I think there's more reason to suspect that the MAC might decide against playing this fall than the Power 5. And if that happens, that opens up a whole bunch of inventory for TV networks. And with as much as the Power 5 athletic departments are going to be conscious of their budgets this year, I think I said that the most polite way possible, they are going to do everything they can to make those TV partners happy. And, maybe ESPN will throw the Big Ten a little extra money if they, or they will not take away money if they have fewer games than they were originally contracted for. If they're willing to space that inventory out a little bit and give Notre Dame give ESPN a Wednesday night Illinois Purdue game. I mean, I don't think as much as a September Ohio State Michigan game will make the earth wobble on its axis, I don't think there's going to be a Wednesday night September Ohio State Michigan game. I don't see them moving that kind of game, but you could move a Penn State Maryland game to a Tuesday, and that would be fine. I don't think anyone would really fight you on that. And there's obviously the traditional objection to having games on Friday nights because of high school football. There's a bunch of states that are not playing high school football this year. So, if that becomes a more widespread thing, then that, maybe Friday nights become a much easier sell for a lot of people. So yeah, it is something that, I mean, like we said a bunch of times, you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff this year that you have never seen before. And yeah, Ohio State playing, Rutgers on a random Tuesday in September or October, like, sure, that would not completely shock me. There is probably a little bit of a reason that you have not seen teams release dates. Like the ACC is the only conference that has released, any kind of schedule at all, and that's just home games and away games, and there's not like an order to them yet or anything. I think that they are going to try and keep things real flexible, and if they can make ESPN or Fox or Big Ten Network happy by spreading things out and getting some higher ratings and a less competitive time slot, I think people might be a little more flexible on that than they would in a normal year.
It would also explain what the heck is taking so long, because you are trying to fit perhaps TV partners with weeknights and the right teams and then space out their off days and things like that. But if you were to go just one game, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that still leaves you 4 games for Saturday, and there are 3 time slots. There's the noon, there's the 3:30, and then there's the 7/8. So you could have you would only be doubling up like once throughout the entire week, where you'd have 2 games, 2 Big Ten games going on at the same time. And as we know, like every Big Ten game is national television. So this would maximize, I think, the eyeballs because there would be only one situation where you're kind of stealing viewers from yourself. And that's, is that going to be the Saturday noon game? Maybe not, because that's the Fox game. So maybe now maybe this allows the Big Ten Network to have Saturday primetime as well. And that would be the doubling up of whatever primetime game ESPN or ABC or Fox FS1 is doing. So I think that, I think I would like to see it. I think it would be great to have Big Ten football 4 nights a week, and Tom, we need it. It would just be nice to have, and there's no reason to do it other than we just don't want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot more flexibility, I think, on everyone's end this year, and if ever there's a year for people to not complain about stuff they would normally complain about, this seems like that would be the year where it's just like, you know what? Let's just be happy that there is football going on TV, and the fact that Ohio State is playing on a Thursday, you don't have the normal concern. Say there's a Thursday night Ohio State home game. Normally you have all the concerns about traffic, and campus is a mess, and you have to dismiss classes early, and you've got to get 100,000 people in there. Well, you don't need to get 100,000 people in there this year. You're getting 20,000 people in there. And, if you have tickets for the Thursday night Ohio State, whoever, Illinois game this year, and you can't get there, guess what? The secondary market is going to be robust this year. So you will get your money back on the secondary market, I would guess. So, yeah, if you're going to do it, this is the year, this is the year of exceptions. So sure, what's one more weird thing? But yeah, please don't mess with the Ohio State Michigan game and put that on a Tuesday. That would be just a bridge too far, I think.
So this is what I came up for my first week of a Big Ten schedule, because if we're gonna start September 5th, I think they should start that Thursday, September 3rd. And just make it this whole big Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday thing, this huge college football rollout, because the SEC is just going to be sitting on their hands and watching. Nobody cares about the ACC. Nobody cares about the Big 12, because it's not going to be Oklahoma, Texas that first weekend, I would assume. So Thursday, I would open up with Indiana at Wisconsin. That game is scheduled to be September 4th on Friday, but we can move it up one day. So that's going to be the Thursday night season opener. Then the next night, the Friday night of the first week of the season is never as good as Thursday night. So this is Minnesota, Illinois. Both of those teams were scheduled to play on that Friday, not these 2 teams together. They weren't scheduled to play this game on Friday, but so they've been, all 4 of these programs have been gearing up to start early. So that's why I have them all starting early. So Minnesota, Illinois for Friday. And then Saturday, you probably I have Ohio State at Michigan State, Nebraska at Northwestern, and then you throw Rutgers and Maryland and just get that out of the way as quickly as possible. I don't know if that's your noon game. It might be your and Big Ten 3:30 game. I don't know. Try to hide it however you can. And then Sunday, it's Iowa at Purdue. And then Monday, it's the big Labor Day Penn State at Michigan game. So that's my first week, where you've got some quality game, you've got some interesting games, you've got some interesting matchups, you've got Rutgers and Maryland. Get that out of the way, get it done. It's like when you would come home and just get your studying done, get your homework done, and then go play. So that is the painful homework, Rutgers and Maryland, and then get back to playing. But I like the idea of Monday being Penn State at Michigan.
Yeah, I do like the Eat Your Lima Beans Bowl with Michigan or with Rutgers and Maryland. I'm just going to hold my nose and eat these, and then it's done. Although I do feel like that will just be begging the universe to then have force everyone to cancel the season. Rutgers wins the first game, they cancel the season, then Rutgers claims a co-Big Ten championship. Like that just seems like that is just begging the universe to make that happen. So that's a little bit of a concern. But yeah, I mean, I like the idea of spreading it out. Like, absolutely. I don't know if they're going to want to make a Michigan Penn State game week 1, but I mean, you've seen like Florida State Miami play that game week 1. That's happened before, and that's always a game that gets a ton of hype, a ton of coverage, and then like 3 weeks later, it's like, oh, both of these teams are going 7-5 again. Okay, so that game didn't matter at all, but at the time, it seems like, oh, this is a huge deal. So maybe you can sell them on that, but I think you're more likely to be able to sell like a Penn State, Penn State Nebraska kind of game or something like that. Or I mean, if they're trying to play, intra division games, then Penn State, Michigan State, something like that. Unless you think it's too, it would be just too against tradition to play the Land-Grant Trophy game week 1. Is that a bridge too far?
It might be. It might be. The big reason I put Penn State, Michigan there is because I think we know the Big Ten is sometimes more concerned about the quality of the content rather than protecting any of their teams.
Mm-hmm.
So they're looking at the television windows as much as anything else, and that would be a way to fill that. But I just hope the Big Ten tries to spread it out as much as possible in terms of the week, in terms of the weeks. I don't think there's any reason not to. It's not like there are other sports for the Big Ten Network to show, because everything else, there's nothing going on.
Yeah.
Everything else is canceled. So instead of volleyball or soccer on Tuesday nights or Wednesday nights, hey, here's actual live Big Ten football, the brand of football that gets as good ratings as anybody in the country. So to me, that seems like an ideal fix for what has happened this season, which means that it's fantasy and it's not going to happen, and we're just going to cram everything into a Saturday. And you know what? Here I am complaining now about Saturdays having too much college football.
Well, I mean, it all does sound wonderful. This is also the league that for a million years had, of its 8 bowl games, like 4 of them playing at the same time on New Year's Day. It was like, why do you have the Gator Bowl and the Outback Bowl and the Citrus Bowl and some other bowl all playing at the same time? Like, why? Play one on the 30th, play one on the 31st, space it out. I would watch all of these. Don't make me choose. Yeah, it all sounds very logical. I think a month out, like, good luck planning anything a month out at this point. But yeah, I mean, if they can make it work, I think they will do their part, because I would bet they're going to get asked to do it, and they're going to get asked to do it by people that are going to be writing them a big check this year. That is going to be probably their, about 80% of their income this year, with ticket sales way down and capacity way down. That they need that $50 million in TV money, so they are going to do whatever they can to keep those nice TV folks happy. So yeah, it sounds crazy. It sounds very unorthodox, but if it's going to happen, this is the year it'll happen.
Yeah, and I just need to make sure I drop this podcast like by midnight tonight. That way it's at least out before the Big Ten schedule gets released, and it is nothing like we are speculating. So Tom, and that because of that, maybe we should wrap up, and I can hurry up and go post this while it is still, I'm not going to say accurate, but not completely outdated.
Yeah, yes. Before it's outdated. That's all we're shooting for here. And then good news. We'll be back next week to have a completely different conversation once there's actually, once we have more information about what's going on. And, I'm sure at that point something will have changed with the ACC or SEC schedule, or the Big 12 will have decided that they're going to start either on August 10th or November 15th. And, everything will have changed again.
What if the Big Ten comes out with what the ACC did, and it's just like, here are the home games, here are the road games. Then we can speculate on when that should be. And then the show that we speculate about that gets dropped like the same morning as the actual full schedule. And it's like, oh, see, this is the Big Ten again, working against us, trying to damage our brand, which actually would just play into our brand, because this is what we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are Rotel. We are Barbasol. This is what we are.
Wow. I ever tell you about the time where, because the Big Ten Network, for you guys that don't remember, they had commercials about, like that first year it was just Rotel, which is like diced tomatoes and onions for that you throw in your salsa. And then as you said, like the insurance one. And then just a bunch of Big Ten Network stuff, Big Ten commercials. And I guess back then I just thought Rotel was cheese because that's all you ever see. And then Rotel like tweeted at me to correct me, like, 'cause like everybody was tweeting about Rotel back then, and like Rotel tweeted at me like, "Hey man, this is actually what we are. We're not cheese." I'm like, well, then that's your fault because I did not pick up on that in your commercials. So maybe talk to your ad people because to me you look like cheese because all I see is cheese.
Who are the ad wizards that came up with that one? Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it is. That is a product. And then the long haul trucker who had Barbasol came home to his wife who was like, shave now. That was it was supposed to be a romantic vibe, and it was just like, she seems bossy. I don't know.
Maybe she should try some Rotel. All right. I think that's enough schedule speculation. We'll do more next week. I can't wait. It's going to be fun. Want to thank you all for listening. Make sure to continue to check out everything at Buckeye Scoop. There was some stuff on the message board this week that if you were there, you saw it all, and it was well worth the price. If you didn't, you missed out. Bill Green had his weekly chat Thursday night. There's always a ton of good stuff there. Tom, what happened Thursday morning on the Morning Scoop?
We had
Friday morning.
Oh, Friday morning, I had a gentleman named Tony Gerdeman on. We talked a little bit about some of the scheduling stuff going on. It's
interesting.
Should be a fun conversation. And just as we're about to stop recording, a tweet from Pat 40, some Big Ten intel via multiple sources. League has advised members it still might not play this fall. Decision on whether to start camp on time will be made in next 5 days, but with testing protocols in place, that is the expectation. Schedule release is TBD, fluid situation. So we did it, everyone. We spoke a completely different Big Ten situation into existence just by recording a podcast. Well done. Our work is done here.
Did we like to record a Saturday show about how the season is not going to happen? And then, like, by the time that show will be over, it's like, hey, the Buckeyes are kicking off. There's a game going on right now in Ohio Stadium.
We just have to go. We're just going to record 2 episodes on Saturday. One is going to be we're very sorry this season is canceled. The second one is going to be the pregame show for the game, which is going to kick off half an hour after we hit stop on the first podcast. So it'll be great. It is going to be so much content.
I do not like this choose your own adventure path that we're on right now, but it is what it is. So thank you all for listening. As always, thank you for your support. Continue to check out the rest of the podcast at Buckeye Scoop. And I mean, there's something there for everybody, as there is at the entire site and on the Ask the Insiders board. So thank you all. Take it easy. Have a good weekend, and we will talk to you all later.